The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Live tonight from the Talladega Super Speedway, LSRTV is happy to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to our continuing coverage of this 2018 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto LLC, where tonight we go racing for what is the 25th race of the year. And it also marks the middle point of the round of 12 on the playoffs as we welcome you into the LSRTV booth. As always, we're so happy you're spending a Monday night with us on your home for sim racing and on the iRacing eSports Network. Myself, Evan Pasoko, and Brian Macklin, along with you for the call again. Downstairs, our producer, Brett Wheeler, brings us to you this evening. And Brian, we come out of the opening round on this, or I guess I should say opening round, or opening race of this round, with another Andrew Fridar's win. If you haven't been with us on Monday nights, it has been all him for what is now a record 6 consecutive weeks, but it'll be tough for him to get through this one. Dega, the wild card race, due up tonight as we get set to go racing for 90 laps.
Not only has it been him for the last 6 weeks, it's been him and Dylan Jones since the beginning of July. The last time we had somebody not named Dylan Jones or Andrew Freenar's win was at Sonoma back on June 18th. That was Michael Guerrilla. So for the other drivers in this field, the other 15 drivers aside from those two, they're looking at this as an opportunity. We have got to get to victory lane and try to figure out how to keep one of these two from getting there. So, and I think this is a pretty good opportunity for both of them, but you cannot count either of those drivers out as well because they know what's up for grabs. Andrew Freenars has absolutely nothing to lose because after winning last week, he's guaranteed into the round of 8. So he can go out here and be as aggressive as he wants and put himself in a position to try to win this race and not have to worry about the repercussions should he get caught up in a wreck. I believe this is going to be a very exciting race, and I look forward to seeing just how aggressive Andrew elects to play it, along with the rest of the playoff contenders, because the points are still pretty close, and you cannot afford a mistake here tonight. That could take you out of contention and put you in a must-win situation for next week at Kansas.
It can put you in a very tough position, and if you do head into Kansas below the cut line, you're going to be in a tricky spot. But as we look at the playoff grid, here's the point scenario coming into this evening. The English Auto LLC playoff grid, Andrew Ferdinand's courtesy of that race win, is already advanced into the round of 8. And it is going to be the 11 remaining drivers fighting, but having just one race run, and again, a majority of the field, the playoff drivers, Ron, we've discussed that over the course of the postseason thus far. There's not a ton of separation. In fact, Dwayne Vincent, first driver out. It's only single-point increments till you get to Dylan Jones, who's third on the grid right now. So certainly a lot of polarity, per se, driver to driver. I expect that to change leaving this evening.
Oh, absolutely. And with the points being so tight, these guys are going to be very aggressive with one another, knowing that's a very important thing to be. Just because if that 1 point, you could end up tying with somebody, and then it's going to come down to your best finish in this round of the playoffs. So they have to really be very aggressive all night long, not only here tonight, but also next week at Kansas, just because you just never know what's going to happen. But it's going to be an interesting race as all 12 of these guys look to try to get something accomplished here tonight. And how about Brandon Bowie on the pole here tonight? We're going to go through that starting lineup here in just a moment, but he is on the pole by almost a 10th over second place.
Well, the drivers were just kind of joking with each other there as the qualifying session rounded down that Brandon Bowie didn't claim he had a ton of speed tonight, and he is the fastest in queue. Good as time as any as the cars are now down on the grid. Let's go trackside and take a look at your LSRTV starting grid. It is that 50.956. Best of all, the RacingBids.com Chevrolet of Brandon Bowie will bring us to the green flag tonight. Out on the outside of the front row, it's the number 98. That is David Washington, who starts from second. And Harry Tiller back for a start tonight, one of the Super Speedway ringers. And he will roll from third tonight alongside Spencer Preet. Late hop into the session. No time to practice, but good enough in queue to snatch fourth away from Andrew Farinas, who starts P5 behind him.
And Michael Guerrero is going to start from that sixth position. He was the last guy other than Dylan Jones or Andrew Farinas to win. He'd love to be the next guy to win beyond those two. Starting in the seventh position is Eric Stanford. Then we have Kyle Kamer starting eighth. Tom Morano starts ninth, and rounding out the top 10 is Daniel Falkingham.
Continuing on through 11th position tonight goes to Michael Cozy Jr. as he comes into this just one single point above the cut line. Ross Cato on his right-hand side will start in 12th. Daniel Everhart gets the unlucky number 13 starting spot tonight. We'll see if that means that the Honda machine ends up on the hook or if it's a little bit of reverse psychology and maybe he can find success this evening. Outside row 7 as the grid now continues to roll is Dylan Jones. He is the final car to take a time of the qualifying session. David Comstock at a 42, no time to queue. In fact, hasn't run a single lap tonight. He will start 15th. Same with Dwayne Vincent. They want to be at the back. The 13 rounds out your grid in 16th position.
And we're going to have a very exciting race tonight. Look for these guys to get single file at the beginning of this thing. I have a feeling everybody's just going to try to log laps at the beginning of this race. 90 laps is what they're going to have to run here tonight. So a long ways to go to get to the finish, and the last thing you want to do is get caught up in a wreck because you were a little too aggressive at the very beginning of this race. But when we get down to crunch time, the last 15, 20, 25 laps or so, I expect you're going to see a lot of bump drafting and a lot of side-by-side racing, and these guys fighting for every position that's available on the racetrack. And especially, you have to look at the team alliances that we have going on in this series. Of course, you have the Aegis PowerTech drivers, who, if they can get lined up, could really take control of this thing. But there are a couple of other guys out here, Brandon Bowie and David Comstock, who could get hooked up together, and definitely a couple other teams back there that might be able to make a challenge for this thing as well.
And certainly at a place like Talladega, those team alliances and having some friends out on the racetrack, it'd be one of the most critical things. Keep an eye, in the group of Tiller, Preet, maybe. If they would work together, Cozy can get hooked up with that Super Speedway Cup group. They can definitely find success. They dominated when there was a couple more of them earlier in the season. Absolutely dominated one of the earlier plate races. Going to be a little bit more challenging with just 3, but certainly a ton of fun as we get set to go race it around the 2.66-mile Talladega Super Speedway. 33 degrees of banking is what keeps these cars sucked down and onto the racetrack. And as we already noted, 90 laps on top of the scoring to pile on tonight. Means that by the time we find ourselves taking the checkered flag, 240 miles of racing will have been completed. As the pace car dives down to the safety of the pit lane, we say it every week. We're so happy that you're with us on a Monday night LSRTV and the iRacing eSports Network. Field in the hands of Brandon Bowie, who's going to control this grid for the inside of the front row. Green flag in the air. We're racing from Talladega.
And immediately you can see these guys trying to form up and make something happen here on the outside line. Look at David Washington. He got a great start to this race. He's actually about a half a car out ahead of Brandon Bowie. But you can see now there's a 3 wide right behind him. Michael Guerrero shuffles Spencer Preet out right away. And Brandon Bowie has an issue. He goes to the apron and they're already wrecking. Bowie is around on the backstretch, and a big wreck takes out Dwayne Vincent as well. Still no caution. There it is. Wow.
And Tiller's involved, and all of a sudden, the big problems early. And a couple of championship competitors involved in this when they went 3 wide early. You'll take a look at the LSRTV replay. Brandon Bowie lost a lot of speed, and the 60 machine Tiller got into the back of him. Tiller then checked up. He got tagged by Andrew Farinas, and that's where the contact was. I thought maybe we were going to get away with it just being that, but then Tiller comes back up on track. Cozy gets damaged. Dwayne Vincent gets damaged. Those were the cars that were 8th and 9th, both on the cut line, and both heavily damaged early on.
Wow, and that's just not what you expect on lap 1 of the race. And I'm not sure if maybe Bowie had a hard time getting the car to shift into 4th gear, or if he was trying to back up to the 69 so that he could get drafting help, seeing what was going on to the outside. But something happened in a big way with that 43 car, and he actually got away with this pretty well. I mean, he got some damage to the right side of that car, and he's certainly going to be hurt a little bit. But when you compare to what we saw Harry Tiller and Dwayne Vincent and Michael Cozy get, he got away pretty lucky. So a big break for our pole sitter, but that's going to be a big hit for Dwayne Vincent and Michael Cozy. Dwayne is actually already retired from the race. His car was beyond repair. So A guy that was already on the outside looking in of the cutoff. He was 1 point out coming into tonight's race. Now he's going to take a big hit early. We didn't even get to complete a lap, and he's already out of this thing.
He is done. That driver is behind the wall, and Dwayne Vincent's night is over with. We talked about the very minor point increments that separated these drivers coming into this evening, and we said that that's probably not going to be the case headed out of here. And Dwayne Vincent, the unlucky one who gets tagged in that wreck, his night is done. Again, no quick repairs available in this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. You get damage, you're damaged, and I believe a little bit of that is now you'll take a look on board with Farinars for this one. You know, the damage, I think, certainly never going to get that car back to 100%, but I think Dwayne Vince had a lot of frustration there as well. Just parked it right away, didn't even make an attempt to get back down to the pit lane. It's going to be do or die for him, I think, as we head to Kansas next week, because he's going to get the bare minimum of points. Looks like he'll be 16th.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Dwayne. I mean, he's been such a consistent driver all season long. He's one of those guys that you don't really talk about him a whole lot. He runs mid-pack for the beginning of the race, and then as we get closer to the end, he always seems to just find himself up in the top 10, near the top 5. Maybe not necessarily the threat to win races, hasn't won yet this season, but definitely just one of those guys that just stays right in the hunt every single week. But now a driver that has not won yet this season is almost certainly going to be in a must-win situation next week, depending, of course, on what happens to the rest of these playoff drivers. If the guys that he's chasing in the bottom part of that point standings have some issues here as well tonight, it could still be a close battle. So just have to wait and see what happens, but certainly not what he needed here tonight. And definitely it's the same for Michael Cozy Jr., who was 1 point above the cut line coming into this. Now he's going to be fighting for his virtual life here the rest of tonight and next week at Kansas.
Yeah, and you're certainly right. I mean, a lot of other drivers could wreck out of this one, only finish 1 or 2 spots in front of him, but it is still guaranteed, I believe, that he's going to be in the gray as we head into the round of 12 finale next week for the Kansas Speedway. And well, you go back into that situation where we haven't seen anybody not named Andrew Farinars or Dylan Jones win a non-restrictor place race since June the 18th. But Michael Garillo won at Sonoma. The week before that, it was Brandon DeBowie who won the opener of segment number 2. That was his second race win on the season. Well, obviously, your pole sitter damage in that one. He comes down to the pit lane. Also, Harry Tiller. That car has also gone behind the walls. So 2 retirees, not even a half lap into this race, are out of it just like that.
Yeah, just absolutely crazy. I said before the race started I expected a calm start to this race, and boy, did they prove me wrong in a hurry. But now that that's happened, I have a feeling these drivers are going to tone it back just a little bit, because the last thing they want to see is a big wreck on lap 1. That could have been a lot worse than it was, especially considering that started with the race leader. You just don't expect to see that happen, but it's absolutely insane. I do believe you might see some of these guys, as we see Comstock and a handful of others coming to pit road here. We should be getting the 1 to go. I think they're just topping off on fuel right now, and while that doesn't seem very significant, we only ran 3 laps, and most of that was under caution. That's a little bit less fuel they'd have to take under green flag conditions, and here at Talladega and at Daytona, a second on pit road can make the difference between you being in the draft and possibly getting out ahead of those guys, and maybe being able to break the draft and get away from some of them. So for these 5 or 6 drivers that decided to pit here, should we get a green flag run and come for green flag pit stops, they might have an advantage there.
Yeah, we'll see if any of that shakes things out. There is a chance this race just breaks wide open, but it goes green. Very small advantage in the fuel game, because with the lights going out on top of the pace car, this restart's going to come 4 laps complete. Still 86 to go. Tons of time with the 14 remaining cars still on the lead lap. A couple of stragglers just now get it out there. It looks like Daniel Funkingham at a Wonder Machine pretty much back to 100%. Brandon DeBowie maybe not as fortunate. He's working with some damage. Guerrilla looks pretty okay. And then a couple of other drivers just catching up to the field. Michael Cozy Jr., though, the front-end damage on the 77's concerning. Eberhardt's got some as well. The thing that scares me in all of that, Brian, is, of course, you can't really be running in a pack much at all with your nose tucked up underneath somebody. Because if obviously not tire, but I guess I should say engine temperatures are a concern anyways. Front-end damage probably going to hurt you in that department, and it's something that's very difficult to keep an eye on until, you're already flashed it right on the dashboard, and at that point, it might be too late.
Well, not only that, but he's got a hard time finding people to stick with him to keep him in the draft. I mean, everybody knows that he's got that front end damage, and that means he's going to be basically a parachute if he's trying to be the lead car. So his hope is going to be that he can tuck in behind somebody and stay close enough to where he's not going to lose the draft. But I have a feeling with that front end damage, like you said, he's not going to be able to stay too close to the guys in front of him. He's going to have to leave a little bit of a gap so that he can get some air to the nose of that car. And I have a feeling that's going to make it very difficult for him to actually be able to maintain this draft. So his best hope is going to be that we have a couple more cautions that can take some guys out and at least give him some points so he can salvage something out of tonight.
All you can hope for when you get involved in an accident at Talladega is damage limitation, not necessarily on the race car itself. When it's hurt, certainly you're looking at your championship hopes, which may rest on a little bit of luck come next week for the round of 12 finale. But the pace car goes back down at in, so a race start to up. We're going to complete 4 laps at Talladega. Slow start with a wreck on the open lap in turn number 2, but we will try it again. No pit stop for David Washington. He'll take the green flag with a challenge from Preet on the outside.
And much like we saw Washington on the initial start, Spencer Preet got a great restart right there. He was able to inch ahead. He actually led at the line, but now you can see the inside lines beginning to form up, and Spencer Preet's losing a little bit of that advantage. He has the 12 of Ross Cato trying to give him a big push as they still get up to speed. It takes about a lap and a half for these cars to get up to full song. They're still trying to wind everything up right now, and as you're doing this, the inside line is the preferred groove to be in. It's after these cars get up to full speed that they can actually start making some moves on the outside. But you can see right here, the bottom of the racetrack, that's the place to be. David Washington inches ahead. He brings the aid of Kyle Kamer with him as they come off turn 4.
You'll bring him on the outside, look for a little bit of speed if that run can get going. Cato middle car, 40 to Tom Morano up there as well. And then most everybody else, Eberhard and the 80 to Friedar is tucked down in line on that inside. But it is going to be David Washington at the line. Interestingly enough, it was actually Preet who led coming to the green flag the last time. A little bit of a jump on the outside, but the balance of order has been restored, and we are back once again, side by side. 3 cars up top, everybody else down on the bottom. And it even looks like Morano, that third car in line on the outside, struggling to stay on the back end of the 12. Preet's right there. I mean, it's a drag race down to turn number 3 for the race lead in this one, but I think you have to get a run off for the quarter, and a little bit of extra help's never going to hurt you. The 90 machine top side, Eberhard joining the outside, and he's not going to be able to go back down. Ferinars fills the hole temporarily. Here's a burst of speed on the outside.
Yeah, Spencer Preet carries some big momentum through the tri-oval. Can he beat Washington to the line? It's going to be a drag race, and I believe Spencer Preet might have inched ahead. However, timing and scoring does say that David Washington was the leader by 4 1/1000ths of a second. So that's just how close that was right there between the two drivers. But Spencer Preet has a lot of help forming up on the outside line, has 4 cars up there now with him, as Preet gets a great run off turn 2. Is he able to clear the 98 of Washington? And if he can, will he make the move to the bottom of the racetrack? Well, the answer is going to be he can't make that move because they're still side by side. Washington carries that momentum. And you can see the onboard camera we have going for you right now. A great race right now for the race lead, but the outside line is going to have a hard time holding on with just 3 or 4 cars up there, especially when the rest of the field is lined up on the bottom. It's going to be very difficult for these guys to carry that momentum and be able to actually challenge and beat the inside line.
Yeah, and he needs to get as close to the 37 as he can. But again, the 90 machine to really help it out, but I don't know if 3, I'll completely agree with him that I don't know if 3 is the magic number. Talking about a very minor group of cars up top. A little bit of a, let's call, deeper back of the pack. Looks like there was almost contact with Guerrilla and Cozy. There is no contact. They stay fine, but a little bit of miscommunication, I think, as the 17 stuck his nose out to the outside of the racetrack. And trying to, I think, just be clear. I don't think he was really thinking an outside line was going to form. And, well, just as quickly as he went up to help out, the Donnie jump ship, Eberhard back down low. But a new driver jumps up top, the 19 of Eric Stanford from 3rd in line. He'll slide up in front of Spencer Preet. It'll give the outside another good jolt to speed. Right there at the start-finish line, but if you don't clear into the corner, you'll stall out.
And that's exactly what we're seeing right here, is that those 3 cars on the outside line are fighting the entire field now on the bottom of the racetrack. Now, everybody else has bailed out, went to the bottom. There's 1 car at the very back, I believe that might be Brandon Bowie, who has stuck his nose out to the outside line. But aside from that, everybody has went to the bottom, and that makes it very difficult for this outside line to get going. But how about the run that we see Spencer Preet and Eric Stanford getting on the outside line, as Preet was just pushing and pushing on the back bumper of that number 19, gave him an opportunity going into turn 3, but he just wasn't quite able to make it happen. But these guys, now they have a little bit more help forming up as a few cars off of turn 4 just jumped up there. Eberhardt was up there for a moment. He goes back down to the bottom in the tri-oval and now goes back high as they cross the start-finish line. Not sure if he's looking for air or what he's doing there, but he's back up to the outside line. Got Ross Cato up there as well. So a handful of these drivers beginning to make something happen. But now, as quickly as I say that, Eberhardt goes back down to the bottom.
He didn't really know what he wants to do. He keeps jumping out and in, and maybe that's just for the Naughty machine to not kind of get caught in this, trap of just driving around in a single line and leaving the option open to himself. Listen, if the outside starts moving, they make passes for the race lead. You can bet that Daniel Eberhardt's going to go outside and try to be a part of that, but I just don't think he's willing to commit to the outside and of course, get trapped up there. Last time it happened, he was able to pretty much tuck in line, but this is the most uniform line of cars we've seen on that high side all race long. 6 of them up top, and probably the best chance we've seen is Stanford with the lead at the line. Is he going to clear down into turn 1? So close, but not enough. Washington barely keeps the nose there and then pulls right back alongside.
There's a part of me that thinks that Daniel Eberhardt is looking for air to cool the engine down because he has been swerving around and trying to get some clean air on the nose for the last lap and a half. And that just goes to show you how important that is, because he was on the bottom of the racetrack. He wasn't really pushing anybody, but he was in line behind those guys where he wasn't able to get any clean air to the nose. That definitely heats up the engine and makes it difficult for you to be able to push, and I think that's what he's been looking for. He's been backed off of the back bumper of the 37 for this last lap or so as well. I just think he's trying to get that motor cooled back down so he can actually make a charge. Now he closes right in on the back bumper of Spencer Preet, and they give a big push to Eric Stanford, clears him of the 98. It looks like the 37 is clear as well. Both of those drivers will go to the bottom of the racetrack, and so for the first time today, the 19 has established himself as the race leader. They brought Daniel Eberhardt with them as well, and now you can see the outside line has faded in a hurry.
Yeah, and the credit on that has to go to Spencer Preet, I think. When he was the driver trying to take the race lead on the outside, those cars behind him were a little bit reluctant. The 37 said, I'm tired of this, and he got on Eric Stanford, and he pushed him through. There was really nothing that the cars that the inside did wrong. The 37 was just tired of waiting around, and all of a sudden, it's Stanford 1, Preet 2, and it on of Daniel Eberhardt in third. And a little bit of a single file breakaway now on the inside of the racetrack. Cato all of a sudden once again leading the outside line, but once again, once they got those 5 cars, they had a real shot at it, but it's all falling apart now, and Eberhardt goes topside. That's not going to work out very well at all. Washington going to get by. Kamer is also going to get by, who didn't necessarily have the start to the round that he wanted. Kyle Kamer came into this race 4 points below the cut line, 10th on the round to 12, and he needs to make up points tonight to get a good spot there.
Yeah, being up in the 4th position, that's exactly where he needs to be. But of course, the big thing, if you can get out front and lead this race and potentially win, that guarantees you're through to the round of 8. So for all of these drivers, they know that they can get that done here tonight. Then they don't have to worry about whatever's going to happen next week at Kansas. They can go into that race, they can focus on trying to get a win, or they can just focus on riding around and setting up for themselves for the round of 8, trying to make themselves into the championship 4. But right now, this thing has really started to single file out. There's only 2 cars left on the outside line. Daniel Eberhardt and Ross Cato, the only 2 cars that are out there on the outside line. Everybody else has went to the bottom. And I think we've hit that point of the race where these guys are just going to try to log some laps for a little while. You might see these guys every once in a while try to form up on the outside line, as now Eberhardt's out there all by himself. You're going to see him get trained all the way to the back most likely. There is a little gap back there, I believe, behind Daniel Falkingham. He might be able to sneak in. But these guys, I have a feeling, are just going to try to log some laps, get through to green flag pit stops, which are about 25 laps away, and then they can try to start racing once they get everything sorted out for that.
Absolutely the smart decision. I think because of that early accident, I think it really kind of drove the point home to these guys. Listen, there's really no point of going hard off the start. It wasn't even an overly aggressive start to the race. Again, just a little bit of an issue for Brandon DeBoone, who started on pole and kind of collapsed from there, because they were still 2 by 2. And you'll see those challenges come to the outside. A couple of drivers will try it, and I don't think Eric Stanford is going to lead all the way up until green flag pit stops if we get that far, but right now we're working lap number 15 of 90 for the Talladega Super Speedway, and Spencer Preet in second is, I think, still one of the most aggressive cars at the racetrack all over the back of the 19, and I mean, the outside hasn't been great with 2 cars, but I mean, Kato and the Nani of Eberhardt specifically have just dropped like a brick there on the top line. They're going to be all the way at the back here shortly.
Indeed they are, and maybe that might be by design on the part of Eberhardt too. He might have seen something going on at the front of the field that he just didn't feel comfortable with, or maybe he just wanted to experiment to see what he has in his car, to see if he can go to the back and then make his way back to the front. When you're racing on a restricted plate track like this, especially when you have a 90-lap race, you have a lot of opportunities where you can do that kind of thing. Back when Dale Earnhardt Jr. was still racing, he did this a lot, where he would go to the front of the field, then he'd drop to the back, and then he'd work his way back up through the field, and he was always just trying to figure out what he needed to do, so when we got to the end of the race, he could make that move and know with confidence that he had the car to do it and the ability and the time to do it. So sometimes you see some of these guys do that as well. I know for a fact when I run on the restrictor plate tracks, I like to do that as well. I like to take one shot up through the field, see how quickly I can get there, and then I'll go hang out in the back and just wait for the wreck to happen. And then when it's time to go at the end, I know I have to go by this point if I want to have enough time to get to the front.
And these drivers doing these calculations pretty much every single time around, and as I say that, a couple of drivers discussing it over the radio what they're feeling at the moment. Dylan Jones, very active, queued up on a bike, and of course, some of these drivers in private radio channels, they can communicate with one another. That's where that whole team thing comes into effect. Aurelia, Bowie, Falkenham, Comstock, all on a same radio channel for this race. But then also, if you're familiar with the iRacing service, drivers also have the chance to just talk with everybody. And a couple of drivers chatted early, but all 14 cars who are still in this race are on the lead lap. And it looks like Kato and Eberhardt have hit rock bottom. They are all the way at the tail end now. 13th and 14th. It's been a long, slow fall. But the outside will not remain unoccupied because all of a sudden Dylan Jones is going to go to the outside. If nobody goes with him, though, not going to pay off.
And that seems to be the case right now as he jumped out there and nobody went with him at all. He's going to start sliding to the back here unless somebody can get up there. You can see Ross Cato keeps sticking his nose out there. He keeps trying to find somebody to go with him on the outside line at the very back of this pack. But the problem is you have to have a concerted effort of 3 or 4 cars making that move in unison if you're actually going to make anything happen. And that just has not been the case for him yet. But you can see Dylan Jones, he drops all the way to the very back. He's going to get in line, it looks like in front of that 12 of Ross Cato, right behind Daniel Eberhardt, and that could also have been a strategic move on his part to get back there with his teammate so that they can work together, timing back up through the field. That, and you also have to always worry about when you're at the back of the pack, being the last car in line. If the guy in front of you does not drag his brake just a little bit to keep you in the draft, you will eventually be left out of the draft, and it's a vicious cycle there. So that could also have been part of the reason why Dylan Jones decided to drop back there to help Eberhardt so he knows he's not going to lose the draft. But that's going to make things difficult for Ross Cato, who actually has lost touch with them by just a couple of car lengths. That doesn't look like much, but that can be a big difference maker and could be the reason that you actually lose the draft.
Yeah, it's certainly spreading out now from the front to the back, an interval of 1.3 seconds. It is young into the race, no doubt, but it is the most stretched out we have seen the field. And if you are that very last car in line, it is always something that you are concerned about. Looks like the back 3 or so trailing by just a tad bit. Again, that could be very well by strategy. You know, we mentioned that Anonymous went to the outside and fell backwards, and talking like it's a bad thing if he didn't mean to. Certainly not good, but oftentimes the strategy usually implemented is drivers drop way back, get out of line, completely bail, and oftentimes sit a couple of seconds off of the race lead group, kind of anticipating incidents. And I don't think that's the mindset for the Nani Eberhardt, because he goes to the outside, and a close call there. He and Tom Moreno nearly get together. The 48, in fact, they did touch. Moreno pushed up into the quarter, and they door slammed.
Yeah, and that could have been huge for the 90 because if they made a little bit harder contact, that could have sent him all the way up into the wall and given him significant damage that not only would have hurt his car, but would have most likely knocked him out of the draft. So he got very lucky right there. That wasn't bigger than it was. Now he's at the very back of this thing, and he's going to have to hope that Cato and Dylan Jones are able to keep him in the draft, and then they can try to make that move again. I think they were about to make a move that could have been pretty big because the 3 of them laid back just a little bit. They got a big run, and they timed that pretty well, where I think I don't know that they would have went all the way to the front, but I think they could have passed a handful of these cars and made their way closer to the front of the field. Now, if they can get lined up and do it again, I'd like to see them make that run because I think it'd be pretty impressive to see.
Well, if they get on each other and they get going, it's always a chance. And that's all you can ask for, I think, when you're in some positions is giving a shot. But Preet has been the example. He has been very aggressive on Stanford, and he has quite literally pushed him all the way up to the race lead. So if you want to go, you get 2-3 cars that are on the same page. I think it's possible. Of course, Eberhardt kind of set back here a little bit. He was making that move until Morano pushed up and got into him. I don't know if there's damage on him that's causing any sort of a concern because he hasn't really been able to get back up. The 12 machine Cato actually looks like he's dropping back to pick him up. So Eberhardt might be in trouble here with the damage in the left front of that race car.
Well, and damage at the super speedway tracks is more critical than at any other racetrack just because of how much you rely on the aerodynamics of these cars to keep the speed up, and just that little crinkle, it's creating a problem on that left front. It's disturbing the airflow across the car, which definitely hurts the speed in the car, and that could be a problem right there. And fortunately, it's not very major, but the downside to it is if we don't get a caution, he's not going to have time to try to work on that. If we have green flag pit stops, which are still about 15 laps or so away, maybe on the upside of 20 laps away, he has to deal with that, and then he's not going to be able to do anything about it under green flag pit stop, so he's just going to have to get down in pit road and hope that he can hang on to the draft. But he's having a hard time right here, and these 3 drivers are about to lose the draft if they don't get something organized here pretty soon. I understand that you're trying to keep that 90 in the draft, but at some point you have to start looking out for yourself as well. And I think that it might be to that point now where if you're Ross Cato and Dylan Jones, you're just going to have to go and just hope that for Daniel Eberhardt's sake, he can catch a caution and get caught back up.
All you can hope for is baby steps, try to compartmentalize this thing, but it definitely looks like that Eberhardt's dropped back. I think Cato did about as much as he could, but he's trailing now, and the Omni Machine maybe banking on a yellow as we ride on the board now with the 43 of Brandon Bowie. He's kind of in the middle of the pack, your pole sitter who had an incident earlier in this race. Everybody single file now. If the objective is indeed to just kind of run this race out, get through some pit stops, and close it on the end, they're certainly doing the right thing.
Indeed they are, and I just noticed that Dylan Jones actually dropped back to try to pick up that 90 car of Daniel Eberhardt. They're well out of the draft now, almost 2 seconds off the race leader, and going to have their work cut out for him, just the 2 of them by themselves, but a big team effort to try to help him out there. But back towards the front of the field, we keep seeing 1 or 2 cars duck out to try to make something happen on the outside line. Looks like David Comstock has done so as well right now, and he's got a little bit of help from the number 17 of Michael Guerrilla as those 2 drivers try to make something happen. But for the most part, it just remains a single file race. However, Comstock has a pretty big run right here. He's able to get up near the 88 car of Andrew Freenars. Looks like he might actually be able to challenge Kyle Kamer, who's in 4th on the bottom of the racetrack right now. If he can get a couple more cars up there with him, this could be a move that might actually benefit these guys. Now, looks like Brandon Bowie is going to jump up there, maybe Daniel Falkingham as well. So these 4 cars, if they can get organized, this could be a challenge for the race lead here shortly.
Yeah, it looked very good when they jumped out, but and you can see the 42 really trying to pull a lot of the weight on his own, really side drafting the 88 and the 8 down the back straightaway, pretty much right on him. You can stay on the outside by yourself pretty much on side drafting alone, but you do need that push from behind if you are going to make up ground. And once you see, pretty much as soon as Guerrilla gets to the back bumper, they get a little bit going. And if the 43 Machine Bowie and the Funky Dam stick with him, who knows? The outside line coming back to life at lap number 27 as they creep their way into the top 5. Watch for Spencer Preet. The 37 has been very good at pushing, but earlier in this race, he was the one that was trying to get pushed to the race lead. Wouldn't be surprised either if the 37 maybe steps up high if the 42 gets anywhere next to him.
If you're Spencer Preet, this move is all about timing. You have to catch that run coming from the outside at just the right time. You don't want to pull up too soon when they don't have the run established, because then you're just going to kill the momentum of the outside line in general. And you can't pull up too late, because if you do that, you could cause a big wreck. So you have to be watching your mirror. Your spotter has to be communicating with you, letting you know exactly when that run is coming, exactly when that push is coming. And if you're going to make that move, you basically have to rely on the spotter to tell you when to go. And it looks like, see, right now, I think this would have been the time if I was Spencer Preet to start thinking about that. Actually, as they start fading, maybe he was better off. But that's the game you play. You just don't know, because you don't know when that run's going to stall out. it looked like Comstock had a run coming, and then it started fading right as they came across the start-finish line. At that point in time, I would have thought maybe that was the move, but then it started falling back. So it's very difficult to do for if you're in this position. But we still have 60 laps to go, still a little bit over 60 laps to go, so they have plenty of time to try to figure this thing out. But I like this because Comstock knows that running single file is not necessarily going to do. Oh, as they make contact with David Washington, he was trying to side draft and Washington slid up the racetrack. That breaks the momentum of the inside line, but that could have been huge as well for the 42 and the 98. But now here comes Comstock as he got a big run because of that.
He's going to get a big run, and it kind of broke things up a tad bit. It was certainly the Talladega machine who pushed up the hill a little bit. As you can see, Comstock pretty much down below that white line, get at everything he can. He knows that the best way, and we've been talking about it, to counteract maybe a lack of a lot of numbers of trucks up on the outside of the racetrack, is to get down inside draft. And it has been relatively tame. Look at Spencer Breed, though. He will push Eric Stanford up and out of the way. The 19 left the smallest of holes, and the 37 makes him pay, pushes his way through the inside, and Stanford's going to be picked up for the moment by Comstock out on the outside line.
I'd have never thought you'd see a bump and run at Talladega, but that's exactly what we just saw. And somehow he got away with it at over 200 miles an hour. Spencer Preet just shoved that 19 out of the way. It did not benefit him in the sense that he took the race lead, because now that inside line has really started to disappear. Only 4 cars on the bottom versus 5 on the outside line, and that inside line is not organized at all. It's just Spencer Preet and David Washington that are really hooked up right now. The other 2 drivers back behind them, Andrew Freenars, and I believe that's Kyle Kamer, they are not close enough to really be of any benefit to these guys. So right now, I think the outside line might be the place to be, with Comstock pushing hard on the back over that number 19. These guys have definitely got the organization going. They might be able to carry this thing, but here comes Spencer Preet. He gets a pretty good run through the tri-oval. Is he going to be able to lead at the stripe? Yes, for the first time tonight, I believe Spencer Preet's finally going to get a lap lead here at Talladega. Second lap lead, I'm hearing, actually. So a pretty big moment right there for that 37 car. Finally, he's able to get back out front. Now, if that inside line can get organized, he has an opportunity to try to take control of this race.
Yeah, Preet got 1 lap lead earlier when he kind of jumped the start a little bit. That's his first real lap lead, we'll say, as he dives down to the inside. And well, that goes to show you that persistence pays off, because we are now 1/3 of the way through from Talladega, and it has been a revolving door up front. Comstock, I think, one driver to keep an eye on. He is your biggest mover. The 42 Chevrolet started 15th, and that race advance Gary Mercer Truckee to Camaro ZL1 has cracked the top 5. And Stanford, I think, certainly has to be a little bit fortunate that the 42 picked him up. I mean, Spencer Breed, a very aggressive move, but when you combine that with the side drafting, wouldn't really know. We're only 32 laps in at Andi. They have been okay, somewhat mild-mannered, but the longer they get into this run, I think it's just guys get angsty, Brian. They know they cannot win the race at this very moment. I understand that, and they understand that, but nobody likes sitting around at a single file line the whole time, so they want to get out and get going and do something, and sometimes it gets a little bit too close for comfort.
Yeah, when you run single file for as long as they were, you're absolutely right, Dan. The anticipation starts going up, and the aggression level starts going up. And I think also what might have played into this is the fact that we had a few guys start losing the draft. We've lost 5 of the cars out of this main draft right now. We're down to just 9 cars in the main pack. And when you start seeing the tail end cars start to fade out, you start realizing that you could be at risk especially if you're one of those guys that's at the back of the pack. And that makes you want to make those moves to try to get ahead so that you're not in that situation and potentially losing the draft, like we're seeing with the 88 of Andrew Freenars right now. He's the last car in this main pack right now. He's only 4 or 5 car lengths off the main pack, but when you are by yourself like that, that's a pretty risky place to be. If he can get back just a little bit closer to this pack on the outside line, he might still be able to hang on, but he's in very big danger of falling out of this main pack if he doesn't get just a little bit of help, which right now I don't see it coming for him, unless potentially maybe it looks like we have 1 car on the outside line falling back, Eric Stanford, that is. So maybe he can get a little bit of a draft from that 19 car to keep him in the main draft.
Yeah, just as I say that Stanford, kind of lucked out with getting picked up, he gets left as the 42 dive down to the inside, and things will single file back out for a moment. So what we'll do is they'll take a quick opportunity to step aside from Talladega. Pit stops on the horizon. You're watching the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series on the iRacing eSports Network. Spencer Preet, your leader, through 34 laps from Talladega.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing.
My name is Steven Corpenos. I'm a senior web developer here at iRacing, and I work on the beta UI. It's funny because iRacing has been around for 10 years, but we want to keep delivering the best possible user experience to our customers, and we've found that the old UI isn't exactly what we're trying to deliver in 2018. We want to use new features and provide the best possible experience when using the sim. One of the projects that I've been working on is some custom heat racing configuration for hosted races. We've been listening to our customers. Everyone's been asking for custom heat races. Maybe you want to tweak a few things with the preset iRacing configurations. Well, now you can using the beta UI. So once you're at the homepage of the beta UI, you just go to create a race. Then from there you go to your set race options. And you'll notice here under event types, you can actually choose heat racing. First, I'm going to show you how to create a new format from scratch. You can choose the number of entrants. And as you can see, when I made that change, the change was actually reflected on the right side in the graph. Also, you can use the estimated duration at the bottom of the graph when you're changing the length to see what the total duration of your event will be. In addition, you can customize every aspect of the session information, practice, qualifying, heat races, consolations, and of course, the final feature race. Because the beta UI allows us to develop features that are robust and complex, this feature will be exclusively available on the beta UI. Once you've made all of the changes, you can hit save. Say you forgot what you selected. You can always preview it using the preview format button. We are very excited to release the brand new heat racing configuration feature that will be available in Season 3 of iRacing.
Back live at the Talladega Super Speedway for LSRTV in the RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series, presented by English Auto LLC. Green flag pit stops are underway here at the Talladega Super Speedway. We had a couple of groups come in about a lap ago, and as you see right now, race leader David Comstock is exiting pit road from his green flag pit stop. He has Spencer Preet and Michael Guerrilla in tow. And now we can see this field really getting spread out after that round of green flag pit stops because of how easy it is to gain or lose time on pit road. We see this group of 5 has really separated themselves from the rest of the field. You have to go all the way back about 3 seconds to catch the next group of cars, which includes David Washington and I believe Andrew Freenarge and Brandon Bowie. Or Kyle Kamer rather, a group of 3 right there, and then a little bit further back you have another group of cars, Daniel Eberhardt, who's by himself still, just trying to find some drafting help. But now this thing has really spread out. Evan Pasoko with just 5 cars in the main pack. It's going to be very difficult if you're any of these drivers to make a move to the outside, and David Comstock having this race lead, this might have been a perfect opportunity for him to stay out front and possibly be out front for the rest of this thing. And I apologize, we're having some technical difficulties. Evan Pasoko will be back shortly here in just a moment, but this green flag racing just continues to go on. And now that they've gotten single file, we know they're going to have to make just one more pit stop before this thing is all said and done. There's still just a little bit over 50 laps left in this race, actually 49 laps at the line this time by for these guys. So still have to make one more pit stop about in about 10 to 15 laps. They would be able to go come back to pit road and be good to go to the finish of this race. So now is when you're going to have to really pick your partners, especially if you're in this main pack. You have to know as a group when you're going to come to pit road. You do not want to go down pit road by yourself for the next round of green flag pit stops and not have help if you're going to make that move, because if you go by yourself, you're going to lose the draft, and that's going to take you out of contention. The big thing that I saw during this round of pit stops is nobody took 4 tires. Everybody took 2, whether it be right sides or left sides. Everybody took 2 tires and just filled the tank up as quickly as they can. As now we're seeing some issues with the 37 of Spencer Preet. He falls out of line. Looks like he's having some connection issues. Started blinking about a half a lap ago. He drops out of line and is going to drop to the back of this pack. That could be a big moment for him as well. That could potentially take him out of the main pack, depending on what happens right here. But just trying not to cause any issues, trying not to cause a wreck by dropping out of line. So a very respectful move on the part of that 37 car. And that could be big for him, because if he had caused the wreck, that could have potentially cost him a ton of points going into the next round here at Kansas. And as these guys just continue to roll right now, we're just waiting to see what's going to happen here. We're getting closer and closer to that halfway point of the race. And as we just continue to roll on, it's very impressive to see this group of drivers. They were able to establish themselves as the race leaders. I mean, they put 2.5 seconds on the next group of cars through green flag pit stops. So very impressive. And that takes a collaborative effort to be able to get on and off pit road at basically the same speed, Evan Pasoko, to be able to get that much of a gap over the rest of the field is very impressive. This group of drivers actually waited a lap too. They let the first group of drivers come to pit road, and then they made their way down the pit road the very following lap, and did so in such an incredible fashion.
Well, that's exactly what makes green flag pit stops at a place like Talladega so unique. Other tracks, the concern is, come down pit lane first, obviously, get the fresher tires on ASAP, and to be as fast in as fast out. We've actually seen in races that have passed at the plate tracks, drivers have exceptional pit stops, but get too far in front of the group that they get freight trained by everybody else. So the key is to be both consistent, and then also at the same time, you have to leave with a group. And this 5-car group that we see up front with Comstock, Guerrilla, Bowie, Falkenham, and Preet is the best one that had that 3-second advantage over Cambridge to Washington. You go to board with Daniel Falkenham, he's 4th in line here. Spencer Preet kind of trailing off to the back end behind him, dealing with some issues. The 37 can get all of that sorted out, but now these 4 drivers, don't expect to see any side-by-side. Look for them to lock in, because I believe, Brian, as we take halfway that time, at least another pit stop before we're done.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have to come to pit road at least one more time. And oh, we have a caution that's going to mix everything up. I'm not sure what happened. I see some damage or some smoke on the backstretch. It looks like Daniel Eberhardt had some issues on the backstretch. He was drafting with the 12 of Ross Cato. And oh, it looks like Ross Cato might have just hooked him when they were trying to bump draft. He goes down, smacks the inside wall hard, and just trying to gather the car back up, slides back onto the racing surface. And that's going to bring out just our second caution of the evening. And this is big for a lot of drivers because there was a handful of drivers, Kyle Kamer, David Washington, Andrew Freenars, all of those drivers had lost the main pack and were not going to be able to run down that group of 5 by themselves. They were going to need help. Well, now they've got the help that they need. This is also going to be a big issue because this is just on the outside of their fuel window with 45 laps to go. You're not going to be able to make it to the end on fuel with one more pit stop here. They could top off when they come to the 1 to green, and that might give them just enough where if they save a little bit of fuel, but it's still going to be very difficult to get back to the finish.
Yeah, I know it's a cliche, but this definitely changes everything. Obviously, not good news for Daniel Eberhardt, who is the one who gets all the damage, but great news for the drivers who had lost touch with the lead pack, because it's basically a reset button. What we'll do as these cars catch back up to the pace car, and pit road will open this time by, is we'll hold off on that midway race break just for a moment, allow those drivers to come down to the pit lane to get serviced, and then I'm sure with the running order gets shuffled around a little bit, we will reset it for you. But just after pit stops, caution flag comes out. You saw all the looks of the LSRTV replay, a 2-car incident with Eberhardt getting turned into both the inside and then the outside wall. Fortunately enough, because we were so spread out from pit stops, the rest of the pack had plenty of time before they arrived on the scene of that incident to allow Eberhardt to come to a complete stop, and he didn't wipe anybody else out. But a tough break, and driver's going to not come down to the pit lane. Top 4 stay out, but Spencer Pre wants to pull the trigger. P5 on back and to come right back in.
This is a very interesting call for me for the top 4 or 5 drivers here because they're going to have to come back to pit road regardless. And I would want to have this car as full of fuel right now as I could so that when I have to come back to pit road under green, it's less fuel that I have to take, as we're seeing some issues down here on pit road. Kyle Kamer slides through his box, has to back up and then has to pull back forward. Same thing with Eric Stanford. He slid through his box, had to back up just a little bit. So some issues down there on pit road. But I like this call by these drivers here because now when they have to come back to pit road, they're not going to have to take as much fuel. It's going to be a much shorter time on pit road. That, and now they've given themselves the opportunity where if they're close enough on fuel, they could save a little bit and maybe try to stretch this thing to the finish.
Yeah, we know tires aren't that critical. I was just about to ask you if you think, can somebody go right now at 48, 42 laps on set of, tires? Obviously not a huge concern, but with the fuel on board, I would think, though, if a yellow comes out, I mean, unless you need like a half a lap or a lap, which you could save by 1 cycle of caution flag, you just obviously use a lot less gas under the yellow than under green. I would imagine if it's anything more than that, though, you just pit because everybody else would. But you're our driver expert. 42 laps, is it possible?
Well, I was just looking back, and the green flag run we had to when those guys pitted, the first group of cars pitted at 33 laps of green flag racing. We went back green on lap 5. They pitted on lap 38, coming to 39. That tells me that they're definitely a good distance short. That tells me that they're definitely not going to be able to save enough fuel to make it to the finish. But I still like the move of coming to pit road now. That might have only been a gallon or 2 of gas, but that's a gallon or 2 of gas less that you're going to have to take under green flag, assuming we go green the rest of the way. And that little bit of difference on pit road, we just saw how impressive David Comstock and all those other drivers in his group were getting on and off pit road. Well, if you can save a second or 2 on pit road, that could translate to 2 or 3 seconds on the racetrack when you're at speed. So it's definitely something that I don't know. I think I would have been making that move coming to pit road, as now it looks like maybe Michael Guerrilla has thought better of his decision as he comes down right here. Nobody else is going to have the opportunity to do that, though, because I'm pretty sure they're going to get the 2 to green right now. Pit road will be closed for the remainder of these drivers. And actually, it wasn't Michael Guerrilla that came to pit road. It was actually, I'm not sure who it was, honestly.
Somebody definitely dove down. It is, I know Tom Morano's down on the pit lane. Eberhardt, Stanford are the 3 that I see down there now. Light's going to stay on top of the pace car. Perfect opportunity now. Let's take a look top to bottom at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and more. As we work out a caution at lap number 49, it is David Comstock, your race leader. He started a 15th position, and he runs right now in P1 ahead of Michael Guerrilla, who again stays out on the racetrack and now runs in second. Brandon Bowie in the 43 machine, he will restart this one in third alongside Daniel Falkenham. They'll make up row 2 as the number 1 car of Falkenham does take the P4 position. Michael Cozy Jr. still working with the front end damage, but maybe these cautions going to keep him in the mix. It's still so good for him. He's the top 5 car midway through this race. Spencer Preet alongside. Look for those two to work together in P6. You've also got Andrew Ferdinand right now, who scored in 7th position. Ross Cato in 8th. Kyle Kamer 9th. And Dylan Jones in P10.
Yeah, how about that? Dylan Jones back in that 10th position. Tom Morano is in 11th, and he is the last car currently scored on the lead lap. Every other driver in the field is at least 1 lap down. Daniel Eberhardt currently sits in the 12th position. Then we have David Washington, who had some issues on pit road, who was caught speeding under green flag conditions that cost him the draft and also put him a lap down. He is currently scored 13th, and Eric Stanford, who also had some issues, he's back in 14th, also 1 lap down. And then Harry Tiller and Dwayne Vincent 15th and 16th. They were caught up in the lap 1 incident that took both of those drivers out of the race before we could even get these cars up to speed. And unfortunately, that was the end of their night, and they will finish 15th and 16th. And that has been a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. And Evan Pasoko, with just 5 races remaining in this season after tonight, you could jump in and maybe be a part of some of this action to close out the season, and maybe you get up there and try to challenge one of these guys and show that you're a championship threat for maybe in the future.
Yeah, and you're going to have to keep your eyes at the top of the screen because a whole bunch of cars just pitted. On a stretch in 40 laps, Ferdinand is in. Stanford, Kamer, Cato, Jones, Morano. Nearly half the field comes down. As the lights on top of the pace car go out, they're going to fill it up on fuel and see if they can stretch this one. I would presume, though, this strategy banks on this race going green to the end and them trying to get that little bit extra to go all the way. But, of course, yeah, iRacing.com/membership. If you're not involved already, not necessarily going to be able to jump into the likes of the RealSimRacing Cup Series right away, but good news for you is you can start your sim racing career with 40% off any new iRacing membership. That's anything from 3 months to 2 years. More info on that at iRacing.com/membership. But this series on Monday nights restricted to drivers of a Class B license, 4.0 safety rating or higher. So if you're an A license, you're good to go. More information on this at LiveSimRacing.com. Look for the RSR tab up at the top of your screen. And while this season is starting to wind down, trying to work on some things for into 2019. So keep an eye on there as well as our social channels to see how you can get involved with some real sim racing action. But because everybody came down to the pit lane, Brian, and I mean, the field gets doubled up at the 1 to go. So these drivers are all in a big single file line down on the inside because they pitted at that point. So it does put the outside at a big disadvantage here. There's only 3 of them.
It does indeed, and it's going to be very difficult for those 3 drivers to get going. But I also expect that some of these guys at the back of the field, once they get going here, they will probably jump up to the outside line and start trying to make moves. This is the point of the race where now you have to start being a little bit more aggressive. We're past halfway. We know we have potentially 1 more green flag pit stop. You've got to start making your moves now. Get yourself in position so when you get past that pit stop and you know you're good to go on fuel to the end, you're in a position to try to challenge for the race lead. So now these guys have to be very aggressive. If I'm David Comstock and Michael Guerrilla, all these guys at the front of the field, I'm a little concerned just because I have a little bit less fuel. I'm not going to make it as far as these guys.
See how it all plays out. We're going to restart with 40 laps to go from Talladega Superspeedway. David Comstock going to control this one for the inside of the front row. Only 3 cars at the outside. look for them to try to get down ASAP. The 42 goes early. Green flag in the air, and work back away from Dega. Close it in on the end now. And a lot of separation between Comstock and the rest of the field. He had a great jump. Guerrilla has an opportunity to tuck down in line. Everybody on the outside folds, and now including Spencer Breed was the last one to hold out. He finds teammate Cozy.
And now they all get single file on the bottom of the racetrack as they try to get these cars wound up to speed again, and already have a few stragglers at the back of this field that have already lost touch with the main pack. Ross Cato, Kyle Kamer, a handful of other guys that are having some issues. Tom Morano back there as well. So some issues for these drivers that has definitely hurt their chances, but they're going to try to get things wound up and see if they can get caught back up here in just a moment. But the single file train at the front of the field has actually not going to be single file for very long, as I thought Spencer Preet was going to jump out of line. He looked high. He looked like he was looking for a little bit of help. Did not get the help that he was looking for, and unfortunately, it's not going to work out for him right here. But now, as these guys get going, this is a time where I don't think I'd want to be single file if I was these guys, Evan Kosoko. I want to start trying to get to the front, start being in the position that David Comstock's in. Comstock can play defense right here. He can just control this race. He can try to block the runs if they start coming towards him. This is where I'd want to be if I was any of these drivers. I wouldn't want to be at the back of this pack hoping that I can make that move as we get closer to the end.
Well, certainly as we get closer to the end, drivers are going to be forced, to get into a position where you just kind of have to go for it. But the way it runs right now, along single file line, benefits drivers who are trying to save fuel. But I think that the polarity between those who stayed out, did not come in and top off, and those who did it right at the one to go, I don't think the guys up front are going to be able to save 5-6 laps of fuel out front, especially if you're the 42 with Comstock Clean Air. You're not lifted at all. You are full throttle all the way around this 2.66 mile super speedway. The field comes down the Alabama gang back straightaway now with a top 7 breakaway, all down in line. And with 7 cars at least on the lead lap being scored here, thought maybe one of them would have had to have not been on the lead lap. But at a second glance, looks like that all 8 of them in a very good position. And the 90 machine of Everhart is that one that I was trying to pick out. He's a lap down in 12th, doing exactly what he needs to do, just kind of blending in, hoping to get a lucky dog if another yellow were to come out.
Yeah, and this is not where he wants to be, being back here and being one of the playoff drivers who is, at the very back of this thing. Dwayne Vincent's the only one that's behind him right now, and Everhart doesn't have that much of a gap on these guys. Actually, he's below the cut line coming into this race, 6 points, so he cannot afford to have this type of an issue here tonight. That's going to put him almost definitely in a must-win situation next week at Kansas. So he needs a lucky break here in the form of a caution to get him back on the lead lap so that he can start trying to make some points out of this thing, because right now he's the second lowest running driver in the playoffs, and that's not going to help him. As you can see, we're on board again here with these guys, and just not a good situation for this group here. But now you can see he's actually starting to lose touch with that main pack. Not sure if maybe that might be by design, though, Evan, just in case something were to happen. He does not want to get caught up in the wreck, because if you get any incident points by the iRacing scoring system, it will not give you that lucky dog position to give you that wave around. So this might be by design too, backing up that way in case something happens, he has room to avoid it.
Well, we mentioned it, drivers hanging back a little bit and trying to avoid incidents, but it certainly looked like the 88 machine of Frenars was a little bit nervous there. He keeps peeking his head out saying, let's go, let's go. The 88 maybe not as bought into this strategy. Again, all the 90 cares about is getting a lucky dog, and in order to get the lucky dog, you have to be obviously the first car lap down. He's the only car 1 lap down running, with David Washington and Eric Stanford having wrecked out of this race most recently. So the other objective, do not be the car that brings out the yellow. So he wants to hang back. Meanwhile, Frenars wants to battle for position. Those are cars that he's racing against that are pulled away, and that's why I don't think the 88's liking this. But, I mean, you dropped back about a half a second. That's good enough. I want to go any further back, though, just 2 cars.
Yeah, I think this is about as far as you want to get back without losing that main pack, especially for Andrew Frenars, who is still racing on the lead lap, racing for position. Granted, he doesn't really have anything to worry about. He's already locked into the round of 8, but you don't want to lose the draft. You want to be in a position to have a chance to go after it when we get down to the end. And right now, I'd say these two are at big risk of losing that main pack. They may have already lost touch with them to the point where they can't get back there. It's going to be very difficult, especially with that 90 car being a little wounded with the damage. I understand Freenar's is staying behind them to try to keep him in the draft. If he was ahead of that 90 car, Eberhardt would lose the draft almost immediately. But again, this is a situation that you really don't want to be in if you don't have to be. That, and I'm actually looking at that 88 car, but it looks like he has a little bit of front-end damage as well. So I think he might have been caught up in that lap 1 incident. That might be playing a factor in this as well. Both these cars being wounded might be what's keeping them from able to stay in that main pack.
Yeah, 2 damaged race cars, not a very good combination. And if it is 2 of them trying to go up against, I guess, what is a 6-car field that remains, that's definitely an uphill battle. And I would not be at all surprised if these drivers fall further and further back. Again, the 90 can't win this race unless he gets the yellow, but pretty soon Andrew Friedar is going to be in that same position as everybody else up front continues to stretch things out. And now all of a sudden, late in a plate track race where you would expect things to kind of ramp up a little bit, the intensity, I think these drivers are going to be racing with their heads screwed on the tightest that we've seen thus far, because that fuel question is a huge one.
Well, there's no doubt that the guys at the front of this field, Comstock, Guerrilla, Bowie, Falkingham, Cozy, all of them, they cannot make it to the end of this race without having to come back to pit road. The question mark is going to be the drivers that did elect to come to pit road, especially the ones that topped off with 1 to go before that restart. If they can make it to the end, it's going to be a big factor in this race. I still just don't think they're going to be able to do it based on the fact that they started pitting after just 33 laps on that first run. It's hard to believe that you would short pit at a plate track by that much when there really is no benefit to it, aside from maybe just trying to get out of the draft and maybe get a small group of cars that can work together and maybe be a little bit quicker than in the main pack. But I just don't think that you would short pit that much here. I think you'd want to run it to the fuel tank is just about dry, which tells me if that's what they were doing, then they're not going to be able to even come close to making it to the end of the race. So you have to wait and see. We got a little bit over 30 laps left, 31 laps left right now. So I just got to wait and see what happens here. But definitely at this point, if anybody comes to pit road, they're in their fuel window. They can make it to the end on fuel. And actually, here we go. David Comstock, Guerrilla, that group of cars that stayed out by themselves, here they come, pit road. They're going to do their final stop right now.
Yeah, they're all going to come in together. No shocker. Look at that as well. Spencer Preed, Michael Cozy Jr. in. Those first 4 drivers, Comstock, Guerrilla, Bowie, and Funkadam, all of them, or Preed, I should say, all of them on the radio together with each other. Obviously a coordinated decision. Preet and Cozy, I think, maybe just followed them in. They could have been included on the conversation as well. Some drivers going to go 2. That's just because you've got time to put tires on while you sit there and let it fuel up. But the main objective, get it packed full of fuel. We know you can go 30 laps, so this decision is going to put them good. And I think the call here, just get it out of the way as opposed to pushing it off and off and off. And this may be a very good call come the end of this race, because the cars who, again, came in for that top-off and are now leading this race, not a ton of them. They're working at about a 4-car pack or so. If this group can stay together, 6 or so, they'll be faster. I don't know if they're going to make up the 30 seconds that they had to throw away to pit, but if that other group can't make it, certainly this could be a race-winning call.
Oh yeah, because now these guys can get lined up, they can get single file, and if they can get organized, they're split up into 2 3-car groups right now. If they can get lined back up, all 6 of them together, they could certainly run much faster laps than those groups. You have a group of 2 leading the race, and then you have, actually, Andrew Freenarz is all by himself as Eberhardt. It looks like he has had some issues here as well, so Andrew Freenarz is all by himself. He's going to fall back to that group of 4. That's going to be the lead pack here shortly. But Freenarz actually could be at risk of not even being able to stay with these guys because of how much slower he's going to be when they get there. Not sure what happened to the 90 machine to cause his issues, but I don't see him on the racetrack anywhere. I think maybe he's having some connection issues at the moment. But big issue here for Andrew Freenarz is you can see this lead pack now. Ross Cato, Kyle came on the outside line. They're going to storm by him on the outside. It looks like Dylan Jones is going to drop down and try to pick up that 88 car and see if he can keep him in that pack. If this group of 5 can get organized, they could run fast enough to where they're definitely not going to allow that group behind them to catch up. But now the question becomes, can they make it to the end on fuel?
That's the big question. And if you're able to keep enough speed up in this group, and they don't catch you, you're looking pretty smart. Michael Cozy Jr. leads the pack of those 6 cars. They have all been able to stick together. They are 34 seconds back. I'm not sure if 2 cars versus 5 is going to give you a 34-second advantage. Less than 30 laps to go. You need more than a second per lap. So I don't see that happening unless absolute tyranny breaks out in this lead group. It is going to come down to, I think, does that lead group have enough fuel to get to the end? If they don't, they are going to be given away sometime, a little bit lap by lap to this second pack. If you're not going to make it, make the call now before that other larger group starts to gain time on you. If you're confident, run it out. And I mean, I don't know if you're going to be able to get all 4 cars to agree with this, Brian, but I mean, you're way in front. You got to be able to save something, I would imagine.
Absolutely, but I just looked at it, and this group behind them just gained a 1.5 seconds right there that last time by. That tells me that that group in front, the lead pack, they either are saving fuel or they just do not have the organization and the speed in their cars to be able to run the type of speed that we're seeing out of that group behind them. Because actually this group behind them, they just made a big shuffle to get the 42 of David Comstock out front. I think they realized having Michael Cozy Jr., while they were still quicker than the main pack, he has a damaged race car. That front end is hurt. He was caught up in that lap 1 incident. As quick as they were, they can be that much quicker with a clean race car out front. So we saw Comstock and Bowie and Guerrilla line up single file, and they made their way to the front of this group. And now that they have done so, it'll be interesting to see as they actually just cut another 1.5 seconds off that main pack. I definitely believe they're either in fuel conservation mode at the front, or they just do not have the speed that this group has right now.
And if they continue at this pace, then maybe I have to hold off on saying that they're not going to be fast enough to catch up. They need to maintain this closing rate. But if they can, it's possible. And Tom Morano in the 48's not helping this lead group out. He's on the outside line, making it side by side, and naturally 1 less car in line. Pushing doesn't do anybody any favors. So we'll see if he tucks down the line. I'm sure he'd love to get in front of the 80 Kamer here. He's got a good run down the back straightaway. The spot is there, and he'll take it. The 8 machine really didn't want to let him as he drove right up onto the bumper, but he's in line. Just stay in line now. You got to work together. That's the thing that this other group is doing. Just look how tightly spaced, if we can get a shot at this second pack, look how close they all are riding in line. That lead group, you've got 2-3 car lengths sometimes separating a handful of drivers. All of these drivers in this second group are right on the bumper of one another, no more than a half a car length between each driver.
Yeah, I'm convinced that this lead pack is saving fuel right now, because I was just riding on board with them, and you can actually hear the difference in the RPMs. They're running about 500 RPMs less than the main pack, and I firmly believe that is by design. They're trying to save as much fuel as they can, running about 4 or 5 miles an hour slower all the way around the racetrack than that second group of cars. So I believe these guys know that they are close on fuel and know that they're going to have to do this all the way to the checkered flag if they want to have a chance. So now the question becomes, if you're that second group, do you have time to run down 28 seconds to get to the lead pack? If you're doing it at over 1.5 seconds a lap like they have been, the answer is yes, you're going to have time to get there. The other thing is, do you try to get there, or do you just assume that they're going to run out of gas and then start racing against each other? Because this very well could be the race for the win. And if that's the case, how long, if you're Brandon Bowie, if you're Michael Guerrilla or Michael Cozy or any of these drivers back here, how long do you decide you're willing to ride in line before you start trying to make some moves with the hopes that that main pack's going to run out of gas?
Yeah, that's the hope. And listen, they're doing everything they need to right now. All of a sudden, you talk about these drivers being fierce competitors racing against each other for everything that it's worth in the playoffs. And it might come down to who is the best at working with those very same drivers. Now, if either of these groups gets to a point late in this race, 5 laps to go, 2 laps to go, whatever it may be, where they've kind of recognized, okay, we've got this, then they'll fight with one another. But right now, you need the assistance of everybody around you. And with 23 laps to go, the gap between the lead and the second pack is still 26 seconds, but running about 1.5 seconds, still quicker per lap. If that is maintained, they will get there. And it's just a waiting game now. And if this lead group is saving that, Brian, I think it's a good explanation for why they're not as tight on one another. Obviously, when you're full in the gas like the cars behind, you can be a lot more aggressive, and obviously you're a lot faster around the racetrack. So if this is the decision, then these guys have to save fuel. I don't know why they wouldn't have just pitted with that other group. You wouldn't have lost anything. You would have been racing with it right now. It is a big gamble to take, especially for those up here who are fighting for the title.
I'm not sure about this call at all either, but I know for a fact that they are, because I'm looking at the speeds right now, and Tom Morano, who is our race leader, he's only running 188 miles an hour. As the race leader, the leader of that pack, if you go back to the second group, David Comstock is the leader of that pack. He's doing 202 miles an hour. That's 13, 14 miles an hour quicker than our race leader. You're not that far off. He doesn't have any major damage. He does have a little bit of damage to the front end, but not enough to where he's going to be that far off. And the fact that this group, like you said, they're not staying organized. Tom Morano has a couple car links on the second place car. He's not that much quicker than Ross Cato. He's just out there. He's maybe running a little bit harder than Cato is. So these guys are absolutely in fuel conservation mode, and they're giving up almost 3 full seconds a lap right now. David Comstock is already down to just 20 seconds behind. Now he could run a second a lap quicker, and he's going to get there before we get to the checkered flag at 3 seconds a lap. He's going to get there in less than 10 laps. So they're going to have plenty of time to take this race lead away and then be able to settle it amongst themselves for who's going to win this thing here tonight.
And that is the waiting game that we have to hold off and see. There are 20 laps left to go this time by for the Talladega Superspeedway. So what we'll do is take one final opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll watch the race to the end uninterrupted for the Talladega Superspeedway. Tom Morano, one of the 5 drivers, trying to stretch it out of fuel as he looks for a first win in 2018. You're watching the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto LLC on the iRacing eSports Network. Back live in a moment.
Once again, photo finish here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMerit at the line.
And back live from Talladega Super Speedway, the gap has closed significantly as the drivers up front clearly not going to be able to make this out of fuel at full pace. They have backed off a lot, and a gap that was not all that long ago, 20 plus seconds, is down to just 2. You can see it on the wide shots as we head into turn 3. And we welcome you back into coverage of the RealSimRacing Cup Series on the iRacing eSports Network, that they are starting to close the door. Now, this group up front made Brian to put the foot back down and started to speed things back up, but I think once that group has gotten that close, it's going to be hard to shake them. This time by 15 laps to go. There's a new driver leading this group, by the way. It's Kyle Kamer. They certainly picked up the pace that last lap, but still got closed in by a little bit.
Yeah, so now the question becomes, with all that saving, did they save enough to where they can make it to the checkered flag without having to pit? That's going to be the big question mark, because they've kind of been forced into a situation where now they have to run full speed again. They can't keep saving, because at this point they have no choice, because these guys are going to catch them. They are down to just 2.8 seconds behind them. They're going to get there. There's no doubt in my mind that this group of 6 is going to catch that main pack, because that main pack still is not organized the way that they need to be. And again, I don't know that they're going to be able to make it to the end on fuel. We saw these guys pit for their first round of pit stops after just 33 laps. Well, they have to go over 40 to the checkered flag from the last time they came to pit road. It's going to be very difficult to do, even with the saving that they were doing. I have a hard time believing they're going to be able to do it. You can see that gap now down to 2.2 seconds, so they've definitely raised the pace at the front of the field, but I still think it's too little too late. This group is going to get there.
I think they are going to catch him, and it is an interesting strategy. Instead of kind of a slow drip, save a little bit by little bit, they really backed off a ton, allowed that group to gain 20 seconds, all in the span of the few laps that we stepped aside for, and now obviously they put the foot back down, and the question is, how long have they known that this is how tight it's going to be on fuel, and evidently have they saved enough? If they have, listen, if that other group catches them, it doesn't really matter. You're still going to have a chance to fight for the race, but obviously the ultimate pain here would be to give up this much time and still not be able to make it. Lap time for your lead group leader as one car dives way to the outside. That was Dylan Jones in the 11 car with a late high move down to turn number 1. He tries to keep clean air. That second group last time by a second faster, and they are not even going to consider tucking the line. Look at the freight train as they come on the outside. A big head of steam led by David Comstock as they've caught them and now want to battle for the race lead. And I expect if they stick together, none of them should even consider going below Dylan Jones at the inside of the racetrack. If they all stay together topside, should have a good shot at this.
As they line up outside on the racetrack, here comes David Comstock. A great run. All this momentum takes him right to the outside of Kyle Kamer. This is for the race lead as they get down to it. 11 laps remaining. Comstock has the outside line. He has 2 teammates behind him in Brandon Bowie and Michael Guerrilla. And with that momentum, look at the speed they're going to carry off turn 2 right here. All 3 of these cars might get clear of that inside line before they get to the back or the turn 3 here. If they do, you might see this whole group dart to the inside line. Doesn't look like Guerrilla is going to get clear, so for the moment, they stay to the outside. You can see, though, Comstock to the race lead, and you know he's got enough fuel. You know this entire outside line has enough fuel. Now they've got the control of this race, so now it becomes the question, if you're Kyle Kamer, if you are Ross Cato, or any of these drivers that elected to try to save fuel, if you've got enough, you've got to start getting aggressive so you can try to take this thing back.
And there is one small advantage as we see Cozy and Preet stay topside. I don't think anybody's surprised those two are trying to work together. But now that you kind of got swallowed up by this lead group, you do have the ability to save a little bit of fuel just by using the draft. So if it's still a half a lap that you need, maybe, there's a shot. But certainly at this point, you got to battle for the race win, and it's on. This time by, going to be 10 laps to go. Of course, question is, can these drivers go out of fuel? Do we stay green to the end? A yellow could be huge. Not only, obviously, drivers involved would get hurt in the points, but it could save drivers who are still tight on the fuel. Again, we don't know. But Preet Cozy, they've got some backup topside. Cato's going to join the line. So does Dylan Jones, and so does Daniel Falkenham. So those 2 separate groups now, all merged into one. And we're side by side, 5 rows deep. and the block by David Comstock is not going to work. He tried to shut the door on Cozy. The 77 went high, the 43 went low, and now the 11 of Machina Jones will pick him up on the inside, but it is Spreet to the race lead. Cozy slides down and stays in front.
Yeah, Comstock was trying to work the lanes right there, but Cozy didn't want to have anything to do with it, and that is the risk you take when you decide to make that move, because if those guys don't want to go with you, they can try to go around you, which is exactly what we saw in Comstock, who, in my opinion, had control of this race and might have been in the best seat in the house. He might have just put himself in a really bad position now because Cozy has the inside line, he has control, and Comstock doesn't have his two teammates behind him anymore. He had the 43 of Bowie and the 17 of Guerrilla behind him, who I believe are going to stick with him and try to help him stay out front for as long as possible. Now he's got the 11 of Dylan Jones, and that's the only help he's got right now. You can see he's still able to draw even with that 77 car of Michael Cozy, who has front end damage and is certainly probably hurting the inside line. But still, those two cars on the outside, they're going to have a very hard time making this move and actually being able to make the pass for the lead.
It is going to be challenging to complete that pass, and you're talking about drivers teaming up on each other. They know the 77 and the 37 are working together. Look at this. Everybody topside. Bowie, Guerrilla, Falkenham, they all go to the outside, and Spencer Breton doesn't appreciate that over the radio as it's a mutiny. Is everybody going to go up and around him? David Comstock to the race lead, Dylan Jones also, and then they'll leave those three out to dry. Falkenham saw that tucks down, and all of a sudden now it's Bowie, Guerrilla left alone outside. It's going to be tough for them to challenge those down low, but look at Comstock, very willing to go up at a block on the outside, and that time it works. He nearly lost the race lead. Dylan Jones saved him the last time, and now the 11's going to try to take that spot from him. To the inside he comes off the nose of the 77.
I don't think that was a block so much as it was, let me get hooked up with my teammates so that I can work with them. They got me to the race lead. I don't want to leave them hanging at this point of the run. That, and as we get down to the end of this thing, you need teammates behind you to give yourself a chance. We have seen time and time again over the last couple of years the Aegis and PowerTech cars be able to do just what we're seeing this group of drivers do, and now you can see it's kind of a role play change because Dylan Jones is up here. He doesn't have any teammates in this main pack right now. All of his teammates have had some serious issues. Andrew Freenarge is at the back of the pack but is not of any help to the 11, and he's up against three team cars on the outside line, which is going to make it very difficult for him. You can see Comstock, he's got the momentum on the outside line, he has the help. But the problem is now there are four cars established on the bottom of the racetrack. He doesn't necessarily have the speed that he's looking for. Falkingham keeps going back and forth. He'll run the bottom on the straightaways, then he runs the top in the corners, and then he just kind of can't make up his mind on where he wants to go. That's hurting that outside line because they just can't get established enough to where they can actually take control of this race.
And it's pretty much, I think, everybody's game now. Of course, you do have those small alliances. That's going to help. The top 7 cars have broken away. Kamer, Faridars, Moreno, Cato slipping back. 8th through 11th position. I've lost touch as we go 3 wide again. The drag race down the back straightaway with the 42 machine just in front, Brown. But I think you're right with that analysis of Comstock wanting to go topside. He's not diving down without the race to the mid-century. The 43, now he sees the 11 get a run. I think that's a block of the inside, and it'll go right back up. There it is to jump back with the 43. Those two cars certainly look like they're working together at 5 to go.
Yeah, they're controlling this race right now. These 3 cars are doing a great job working together on the outside line. They're slowly starting to take control of this thing as they're down to just 2 cars left on the inside, 3 cars, as Spencer Preet looked like he was going to move up, and then he goes back to the bottom of the racetrack. He's looking for some help at this point. But I think right here, off turn 2, we're going to see this outside line really get a run. I believe you'll see Bowie and Guerrilla get clear of Dylan Jones, and you're going to see those 3 cars drop to the bottom of the racetrack. If they elect to bring Falkingham with them, they could stay up there, but I'm not sure if they're going to make that decision. We'll find out here in just a moment. And the answer is going to be they're going to stay high. I think they're going to try to bring that 1 car with them at this point as they continue to carry that speed. But they're going to have to make their decision here pretty soon, because if they're going to control this thing and try to get to the checkered flag, they got to get to the bottom, take control of this race on the bottom of the racetrack. Otherwise, you're giving that opportunity for Dylan Jones and Michael Cozy and Spencer Preet to be able to challenge you and take this thing away.
You open up the door, and sometimes you get to expose yourself. That was a key trip by the start-finish line that time, because we are officially now at 4 laps to go from Talladega, which means we are at the point of no return. A yellow at this point would end this race. It's up to the drivers to sort it out amongst themselves how long this fight is going to go. The 43 machine leads the outside, the 42 leads the bottom, and still only 2 wide. Not sure how long that is going to last.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. Does Comstock move back up and try to work with his teammates, or does at this point, when we get down to it, does he stay on the bottom? Now he goes to the top side again. He pulls back up in front of Brandon Bowie. That opens the door for Dylan Jones and Spencer Preet on the bottom. It looks like Jones might have an opportunity to lead at the line. It was a tie by the timing and scoring, but they do give it to Dylan Jones. Wow, that was so close. That's his first lap lead of the night, I'm hearing. Right as we get to 3 laps to go, he leads his first lap of the race. And now he's down on the bottom of the racetrack by himself with just Spencer Preet. There's 4 cars on the top side and just Dylan Jones and Spencer Preet on the inside. Michael Cozy Jr. is beginning to lose touch with this draft, and that's going to hurt the efforts of the inside line. Now Falkingham goes down there. Comstock goes down low as well. He leaves his 2 team cars hanging out there as now has become the 2 laps to go. This is the point where, yes, you want to work with your teammates, but you also have to think about yourself as, oh, Dylan Jones is coming to pit road.
He's out.
He's not going to make it to the end.
He's one of the drivers who topped off, and he is going to be 2 laps shy on fuel. He has to pit. It's going to be a catastrophe for his hopes at trying to get a lot of points tonight. 2 laps to go there for everybody else. Can any of those other cars make it? Frenar's Kato camera dropped 45 seconds back, trying to save fuel. At that point, might as well just come down to the pit lane, get it sorted out, and for those drivers, looks like they did that service about 2-3 laps ago, so the call does not pay off, and those drivers are not going to be able to go to the end on fuel, so it's the safe strategy, the fuel and the pit stop that has put David Comstock in the race lead, coming to 1 lap to go this time. Bye from Talladega.
And as they come to the white flag, you have to wonder, will Brandon Bowie or Michael Guerrilla make a move to try to win this race for themselves? For David Comstock, it has been over a year since he last went to victory lane here in the Full Throttle Cup Series. It was last year at Richmond, the last time that this 42 car went to victory lane. He's a lap away from going back to victory lane for the first time in 2018. But can Brandon Bowie or Michael Guerrilla make a move? And will they make a move to try to take this thing away?
Well, Frenar's 6 race win streak's going to be snapped. He's fallen off with the lead lap. But the question is, who is going to be the driver to break that streak? It's Comstock down the back. Final time at turn number 3, single file. Comstock, Bowie, Guerrilla, Falkingham, and Cameron the 8 machine trailing a little bit further off with Spencer Preet behind. There's the move to the outside. There's contact. The 42 saves. Comstock blocks the 17, and there's going to be a wreck behind them, but David Comstock shuts the door, wins from Talladega.
A huge, huge victory for the 42 of David Comstock. He's officially locked into the round of 8. Next week at Kansas means nothing to him because he is going on to the round of 8. His first win of 2018. It has not been the year that our defending series champion has been looking for, but a win in possibly the biggest round of this chase, or playoffs rather, comes at the perfect time for David Comstock. He gets to move on and will be a part of the group of 8 drivers racing for a chance to go to Homestead to have a shot to win the championship here in a couple of weeks.
A lot to break down. You saw it on the replay. The 43 went high. They nearly took each other out, but it was a masterful save by Comstock. He then goes down, blocks the 17, and it is the move to the outside by Falkingham that drives into the 43. Both of those drivers will spin, and it looks like they did end up eventually crossing the finish line in 4th and 5th respectively, but not enough time for Guerrilla once he got P2 to make a move. And that is David Comstock making a 42 machine as wide as he possibly can. And he celebrates on the front straightaway. Your race winner tonight from Talladega. First on 2018, David Comstock is back in a Full Throttle victory lane. He has a lot of celebrating to get to, and I'm sure it'll be a very excited driver, the 42, that we will catch up trackside with in a moment. As we step aside one final time, the post-race show is next from Talladega. You're watching the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
the most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSRTV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of RealSimRacing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSRTV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. And back live from the Talladega Super Speedway, another thrilling plate track conclusion to wrap up this race with the RealSimRacing Full Throttle Cup Series powered by English Auto LLC. Happy that you're still with us on your home for sim racing and the iRacing eSports Network as we welcome you into post-race coverage from Lincoln, Alabama. Evan Pasoko, Brian Macklin still with you upstairs with Brett Wheeler down in the production trailer bringing us to you. We will go trackside in just a moment and get post-race reaction for the drivers involved in that wild finish. Before we do so, as always, let's look top to bottom at your LSRTV full race results. The race win tonight goes to David Comstock, first for him on 2018, and it'll punch his ticket into the round of 8. He, Michael Guerrilla, who comes home second, and Spencer Preet, who comes home in third. Should all be trackside with us if we can get him momentarily. Brandon DeBuey, Daniel Falkenham, also honorable mentions. They do slide across the line to P4 and 5. Michael Cozy Jr. comes home P6, and the last car to actually finish on the lead lap, Dylan Jones in the 11, finishes in 7th. Rest of these drivers a lap down all the way through P10. It's going to be Kyle Kamer in 8th, Ross Cato 9th, and Andrew Fernandez rounds out your top 10.
11th goes to Tom Morano, was leading shortly before the end of this race, but ran out of gas, was not able to make it to the finish. He finishes P11. Daniel Eberhardt had some issues here tonight, was caught up in an early incident, and then had some connection issues. He will finish P12. Big implications in his chances to make it to the round of 8. David Washington will finish in the 13th position here tonight, not the night he was looking for. Eric Stanford comes home in 14th, and then Harry Tiller and Dwayne Vincent both caught up in that lap 1 incident. They finished 15th and 16th respectively. And for Dwayne Vincent, another big hit in his playoff hopes as well. We'll get an update on those points in just a little while to let everybody know how that has shook up after tonight. But before we get to that, Evan Pasoko, you're down in victory lane with the driver who has been looking for this since September 25th of 2017. That's the last time David Comstock went to victory lane. It was at New Hampshire. I said Richmond earlier, but it was New Hampshire, and now he is back in victory lane.
He's back at victory lane. It couldn't have come at a more important race. Well, some drivers are going to be licking the wounds out of Talladega. David Comstock is going to be celebrated. First win in 2018. He's into the round of 8 as we're trackside with him now. David, congratulations on the win. Crazy finish there. A little bit of pit strategy sprinkled in. Obviously, the decision to come down and get that fuel was the right one, and you end up in a position to win this race. You had to make that 42 awfully wide coming to the end.
Yeah, we saw that when that yellow came out, and when we were going to go back green, that nobody could make it. So we just ran our strategy and knew that the guys who pitted, no matter what, they had to come down again. So just ran our strategy, and it's just all total team effort between us 4 teammates with Bowie and Guerrilla and Falkingham, all of us. We worked together along with a little support from Cozy and Spencer Preet there. So we all worked together, and yeah, I had to make it wide. I was desperate for that win, man. So I was doing we were all talking about last lap if we're going to do something, and we kind of contemplated back and forth like, well, if we don't do anything, we got a 1 through 4 finish, but we got off four, and all bets were off. So I was going for everything I could to try to block. I really been desperate to win for over a year now, I guess. You guys have been keeping track better than I have on that.
You can credit Brian with that one, holding you accountable. Yeah. I know it's good to break through them and get this one, and obviously anytime you could break a slump, it's fun. We kind of knew Talladega was going to be one that might be the race that snaps Fridar's streak, and it does. His 6-race win streak comes to a close tonight. You get your first in a while, but also for it to come into playoffs, you're automatically now going to be headed to the Elite Eight and have a legitimate shot now if you can get some momentum out of this at fighting for a title in 2018. How does the timing of this make it extra special?
Yeah, well, with the plate tracks and stuff being such a wild card, I mean, you really, a lot of fate is out of your hands. So it's such a total team effort with all of us here. The rest of the tracks, really, that's all talent dependent per driver. So it's a bit of an anomaly here for Dega. But we're going to just try to keep this momentum rolling that we all have and close out the year strong.
And you will close out this round next week in Kansas, but that's not necessarily the biggest concern for you. Are your eyes now set on what you get out of Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix, and maybe you get a head start on some of the practice?
Oh, yeah. I mean, no matter what, we're getting down to the end of the year here, so we'll be chomping on the bit, grinding hard, trying to get all the practice we can, and we got a title to defend still, so we're going to go out and do as best we can for that.
I'm sure everybody watching us throughout these playoffs on the iRacing eSports Network really enjoyed that finish. We will let you get out of here and get to some celebrating. David, before we do those sponsors, shout-outs, all of those good folks who makes it happen for you on a Monday nights.
Yeah, everybody at Aftermath Motorsports for their support, allow me to come over and run here. Thank you to them. Everybody all on here with Caribou Racing, Falkingham, Bowie, and Guerrilla. Their support, especially this race, working together as well as we did. Wish we could have got a 1 through 4 finish, but top 5 for all of us. That's a first we can say. So proud about that. Sponsors on the car, racingbiz.com every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Jonathan there with his auctions that he runs. Go and get your bids in to try to win some merchandise. Specifically, learn is it the 25th of October? Breast cancer, because of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, be a special auction going on to help support that, with a lot of proceeds going to support that. So definitely tune into that one. Monster Energy, Gary Mercer Trucking, JD Lair, JDR Graphics for Paint My Car, EJ Brakes, Hick and Jix, all the fans, friends, and family watching. You guys are broadcasting. Thank you.
He's your race winner tonight from Talladega. David, we appreciate your time. Congratulations, long overdue. And we'll see if maybe this jump starts something. You guys still got 5 more race wins to go for on top of the title. Best luck. We'll catch you next week in Kansas.
Thanks.
Race winner from Talladega. Right there in the thick of things, a race down to the end is Michael Guerrilla. He'll come home in second position tonight. Brian Macklin has his reaction.
Yep, down here with Michael Guerrilla on the racetrack here, or after the race is over. Michael, second place in the race, second place in the points as well after tonight. A big points night for you that puts you in a really good spot to make it into the round of 8. Obviously, a very big finish here for you. Take us through your night.
Yeah, it's pretty eventful. I knew from the start I was going to work with the 42, 43, and 1 throughout the entire race, because we always used to hang out together in our little channel during the race, so I knew we were all going to figure out what we needed to do. We had it all planned out up until when that caution came out with Eberhardt and I believe it was Cato when they came together. And at that point we knew no one could make it, so we decided to stay out. And then we had the strategy going to where we knew if we stayed out longer than what we did, they would be able to save more fuel, the people who stayed out. And we thought they had a chance, and because Dylan made us really scared there with like 2 to go, with him still being out there. So it's a good thing we pitted what we did, but yeah, the strategy worked out. We even passed them on merit, so even if they were going to make it on the field, we still got up to the pack, so I was still pretty happy about that. And then just going through turn 4 in that last lap, I knew Bowie's backing up behind Comstock, and I told him, if you got the run, go for it. He went for it, but he got blocked, and I feel bad he got turned right there at the end, but coming on top P2, can't complain about it. I feel like I'm Chase Elliott before he started winning all these second places, even though I've won this year. So yeah, it's been a good ride so far, 2 in a row. I'll be going for 3 in Kansas.
And obviously finishing second here tonight, that puts you with 15 points above the 9th place points position right now. So you have a pretty good gap over that position to make it into the round of 8. How comfortable do you feel with that, having that 15 points? Do you feel like you can be pretty aggressive next week at Kansas, or do you think that you still have to kind of pay attention to that and potentially have to be a little bit mindful going through that race?
I feel like I could take a little bit more chances with that size of a gap. I feel like if I have a little mistake, like since I know we're all going to be red riding next week, if I hit the wall, I'll be like, oh, that's fine, just keep going. So tomorrow, Kansas is going to be just a grind out track, just trying to hold on to what I got and make sure I can keep that gap to whoever's in that 9th spot. I think I could do that unless I completely wreck out. But other than that, yeah, I feel like I'm pretty much locked in the next round. Not looking forward to the next round because Martinsville's not one of my best tracks at all. But I feel like just for Kansas, I feel pretty comfortable.
Well, and you led right into my next question. Going into that round of 8, going with Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix. You said obviously Martinsville's not one of your better racetracks. How about Texas and Phoenix? Do you feel like you have a pretty good chance at getting through those couple of races and giving yourself an opportunity to get into the Final Four?
Yeah, like I said, Martinsville's not very good for me. Texas, I'm okay at. Phoenix is the one I have marked in that round because I feel like I'm pretty good around there. I led a lot of the race. I think earlier this year, if I can remember correctly, I led a decent amount of it, and I was competitive, easy top 5 car there. So I feel like that's the one where I'm gonna have the strongest run out of the last 3 before the last round. Basically, it's just gonna be able to survive Martinsville, do well at Texas, and try and go out for a win in Phoenix.
Well, there you go, Michael. That's all you can do. I wish you the best of luck. But before we let you go, sponsor shout-outs. Who makes it happen for you on that 17 car?
Just once again, Dead Zone for having them as a racing team. The sponsor of the car is GoPro Motorplex. That's where I work there. So it's in Mooresville, North Carolina. It's a little go-kart track. So if y'all in the Mooresville area, make sure you want to come on out. I'll get you guys set up with some races. Other than that, yeah.
All right, Michael. Congrats on your 2nd place finish, and we'll see you next week at Kansas.
Yep. See you then, Brian.
2nd place on the racetrack, 2nd place in the points as we get through the 2nd race of this round of 12. That's Michael Guerrilla. Now I'm down here on pit road with our 3rd place finisher, Mr. Spencer Preet. Spencer, obviously a very big night for you as well, having a very solid run here. Had to go up against a couple of teammates in the final laps. Obviously that makes things pretty difficult, but overall a pretty good night for you.
Yeah, I needed to have a good night. Last week at Dover sucked after getting my first pole of the season and then kind of just ruining every other part of the race after that and not being able to finish. I needed to have a solid run tonight if I wanted to stay in it and get in on points. And yeah, I just kind of went in with the mindset of just stay to the front and keep up with the strategy. You know, whatever the guys around me are doing, I wanna be on the same strategy. And I just kind of got hooked up with all those guys that, you know, we all were working together there. And I mean, it kind of just panned out from there. Everyone had to pit on that last run. Those everyone that stayed out, really, they had to save a lot of fuel. And so the strategy with all of us, we were all working so well together that it, I mean, we caught them. I guess they were saving, but we still caught them in like 15 laps or not even. So it was definitely the right call.
Yeah, absolutely impressive. We were watching that at one point. You guys were over 3 seconds a lap quicker than them. Just absolute incredible how organized you guys were during that run, to not race against each other, obviously, and then to be able to stick together all the way to the end. But looking at the points right now, you currently sit in the cutoff spot. You're 8th in the points. You have a 3-point buffer over Kyle Kamer, 11 back to Daniel Eberhardt. Obviously, the buffer to Kyle Kamer is probably the one you're more concerned about. What do you have to do next week at Kansas in order to make sure that you can stay inside the top 8?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm a nice guy, and tonight Cozy was in trouble because he got damaged on lap 1, and I was kind of, from the moment we got the caution, I ended up behind him on that restart. I was kind of just making sure that he didn't drop off again and lose the pack, because he was also, I think, coming in tonight, he was in the transfer spot. So, you know, he needed to have a good run too. So I kept him up there, and now he's only like a couple points ahead of me. So you know, next week it's definitely going to be looking at him, looking at Camer and all those guys. And I mean, really just having another solid run. I think if I can finish in the top 5, no matter what, I'll probably be safe.
Yeah, you actually came into the night 5 points out, and now you're in the cutoff spot by 3. So a pretty good swing for you. And Cozy moves up just a little bit as well. So I'm sure he's going to appreciate that help. If you do make it through to the round of 8, what's your favorite track in that last 3 races that you're going to have? Where do you feel like you stand the best chance at possibly getting the win and guaranteeing yourself a spot into the Final Four?
I like to say Martinsville, but I think if Cozy's on his game, he's going to be tough to beat at Martinsville. But I do enjoy the short tracks. Phoenix is another good one for me. And I'm not a fan of mile and a halves, no matter where they are. So I'm definitely going to be looking at Martinsville and Phoenix as the 2 tracks I need to get it at.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing what happens next week at Kansas, and looking forward to seeing whether or not you can make it into that round of 8. Before we let you go, Spencer, sponsor shout-outs. Who makes it happen for you?
Just shout out to Cozy and his stream and everyone watching, and Michael, David, Bowie, and Falkenham for working out that strategy, because I wouldn't have been smart enough to come up with that, and I just kind of went off of what they were doing. So shout out to all of them, and big thanks to the guys that keep this league going, and for you guys for putting on the broadcast.
Well, congrats on your good run here tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next week at Kansas, Spencer.
Thank you.
All right, Spencer Preet finishes 3rd here tonight. He came into this race on the outside looking in as far as the cutoff was concerned. Now he is in the cutoff spot, Evan Pasoko. And next week at Kansas is going to be a very interesting race, because we have a bunch of drivers that are very close on points. And then we also have a handful of drivers, most notably being Lionel Kalisto, Dwayne Vincent. They're in a must-win situation. I believe even at this point, 11 points out, Daniel Eberhardt is not going to be able to make up 11 points to get into the cutoff. I think he's even in a must-win situation. So Kansas is going to be a very exciting race for sure.
And you've heard the talk all week when it comes to the Monster Energy Cup side of things, some of the unique challenges that Kansas brings. Yes, it's a mile and a half. Yes, Homestead's a mile and a half, but those racetracks have very unique characteristics. Kansas is going to be a ton of fun, as that one comes up next week. But we already know 2 of the drivers who are going to be racing in the Elite 8, as it used to be known, just the round of 8 these days. Farinar's Comstock in. Do we see a 3rd different winner when we head there, Brian, or is it just going to be Andrew Farinar's puts the plate track behind him and jumps right back on it? I got to think, just on a mental side of things, beating him in this race, and the fact that, it's a plate track, sure, anything that can happen, but for a guy that has been oh so good, you beat him on strategy. You made the correct call. He did it. I got to feel like that's got to be some sort of a momentum boost, and maybe that'll inspire these drivers, dig a little bit extra, and we'll see certainly maybe some more balanced competition headed forward with the total, as we head into Kansas, only 5 races left on the season.
Yeah, I have to believe that Andrew Freenars is going to return to form next week at Kansas. He's just been that guy all season long. I mean, he went on a stretch of winning 6 races in a row on 6 almost entirely different racetracks in general. I mean, he won at Darlington, Indy, Vegas, Richmond, Charlotte Roval, and then Dover. That's absolutely incredible, the different style of racetracks that we went to, and he dominated every single step of the way. You got to believe going back to Kansas, it's going to be the same song, just a different place. So I think, like you said, though, it does give these guys a little bit of boost in momentum. David Comstock, Michael Gorilla, these guys outsmarted Andrew Freenars here tonight, but outsmarting a driver on a restrictor plate track versus outdriving them on a track that he is most likely going to dominate at, that's 2 completely different things. It's going to be very challenging. But now I look ahead to the round of 8. I look ahead to Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix. This is an opportunity to where they could potentially take him out of the Final Four. If 3 different people can win in that round and possibly keep him from scoring enough points to make it in, you could take Andrew Freenars out of the championship picture altogether. So I think you look past Kansas and you look into that round, and you have to start thinking, how can I keep Andrew Freenars from winning there? How can I try to make him have to point his way into Homestead?
And that's certainly going to be a lot for drivers to ponder over the next 7 days. Well, they sit and think about that. You don't have to wait until next Monday night to catch more live sim racing action right here on LSRTV, your home for sim racing, because as that does it for us here from Dega, we encourage you to join us this upcoming Wednesday and Thursday. Both those races going to be 9 o'clock starts on Wednesday, October the 24th. It is the eSpeed Contender Series. That one is right over here on the iRacing eSports Network. And then the Cessra Series is back on Thursday, also also 9 o'clock Eastern start. That one is over on the LSRTV channel. Of course, full broadcast schedule. Go to our website at www.livesimracing.com. But the best way to stay up to date with us by engaging on social media. Like us at facebook.com/LSRTV official, and follow us over on Twitter at LSRTV for more information. On behalf of our entire team behind the scenes, the folks who make it happen upstairs, night in and night out, and of course for your broadcast team tonight. For myself, Evan Pasoko, for Brian Backlund, Brett Wheeler, and everybody else in our team, want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate David Comstock, once again a winner on Monday nights. And we look to close out the round of 12 next Monday. That one, October the 29th, from the Kansas Speedway. That race and every race as the playoffs continue in the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series can be found right here at LSRTV. That's your home for sim racing. Until next time, good night from Talladega. The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.